Today, we're diving into a fascinating text from 15th century India called the Ananga Ranga. Now, you've probably heard of the Kama Sutra. Well, you can think of this as its companion, but with a very, very specific goal. How to keep the spark alive, not just for a night, but for a lifetime, inside a marriage.
And you know, how this book even made it to the West is a story in itself. The very first English translation, back in 1885, wasn't for just anyone. It was done by a private group, the Kama Sutra Society, and stamped with "for private circulation only." So right away, it had this air of being this exclusive, almost forbidden piece of knowledge.
Okay, so let's be real. You hear secret society and an ancient art of love, and your mind probably goes to one place, right? You're thinking this has to be some kind of fancy historical guide to just, wantonness. And that's a totally fair assumption.
But the translators themselves shot that idea down right from the start. They put it right there in the preface, clear as day. The point of this book, they said, isn't to promote wild behavior. It's to save marriages from getting boring, to help a husband and wife keep things interesting so that they stay together. First and foremost, it's a relationship guide.
So how does it do that? Well, this is where the Ananga Ranga gets truly incredible. It kicks things off with this amazingly systematic approach by classifying all women into 4 distinct types or temperaments. And we're not just talking about personality here. This is presented as a full-on psychological and physical profile, the key to unlocking perfect compatibility.
First up is the Padmini, also known as the Lotus-woman. The way the text describes her is almost divine. We're talking a face like the full moon, the eyes of a fawn, just incredibly delicate. She's courteous, she's religious, she is the idealized, refined woman.
And this is where it gets unbelievably methodical. It's not just about her personality, it's about cosmic timing. Look at this chart. The book says the Padmini finds her greatest pleasure during the daytime and only on these very specific days of the lunar calendar. So in this world, love isn't just a feeling, it's practically a science.
And then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, we have the Hastini, or the elephant woman. The contrast here is pretty jarring. She's described as stout, coarse, with a harsh voice. She's called gluttonous, shameless, and demanding, needing, as the text says, prolonged congress.
And this table just perfectly illustrates that difference. Yeah, it lists specific lunar days for her, too. But look at the time column. It just says anytime. The book literally notes that the Hastini, being the coarsest, just completely ignores those delicate distinctions between day and night that are so important to the Lotus-woman.
Okay, so we have these different types of people, but it builds from there because it gets even more systematic. The Ananga Ranga actually lays out what it calls a science of arousal, a structured, almost mathematical system for creating passion.
The system's called the Chandrakala, and the idea behind it is just wild. It claims that passion literally moves around a woman's body, settling in a different spot each day of the lunar month. So if a husband applies the right touch to the right place at the right time, he can guarantee satisfaction and prevent, and the book is very serious about this, adultery, quarrels, and other deadly sins.
And you can see exactly how this is supposed to work right here. On the 15th day of the month, passion is in the head and hair. On the 13th, it's the lower lip. The 9th, the breasts. It's this incredibly mechanical, almost ritualistic way of approaching intimacy. The book is just filled with charts like this for every type of woman.
Now, don't worry, the men are not left out of this grand system. The text also gives us a typology for them, although it's maybe a little more straightforward. It focuses mostly on their physical attributes.
So men get divided into 3 types: the Hare-man, the bull-man, and the horseman. And you can see the main difference right away is the length of the linga, which they measured in finger breadths. But the text immediately links these physical traits to temperament, from the quiet Hare-man all the way up to the passionate and reckless horseman.
So, what's the whole point of all this categorizing? Well, it's about engineering the perfect match. The text is really blunt about it. The greatest happiness consists in the correspondence of dimensions. As you can see for the Hare-man here, pairing him with a similarly sized deer woman is uttama, which means the best. But a mismatch, like with an elephant woman, is called kanishta, the worst possible pairing, pretty much doomed to lead to unhappiness.
All right, so beyond the typologies, the book kind of turns into this practical guide, almost like a book of spells. It's filled with dozens of recipes, potions, and remedies to help fine-tune the whole experience. And honestly, this is where it gets really, really wild.
So, for example, there are all these recipes for, well, external applications that are meant to hasten a woman's passion. The idea was that women were colder in blood and less easily excited, so it was the man's job to help bring her enjoyment to its peak. And to help with that, there are all these corresponding remedies to delay the man's enjoyment. The methods are pretty out there. We're talking about putting pastes on the soles of your feet, or even tying a root around your waist. The goal was always synchronicity, making sure both partners got to the same place at the same time by any means necessary.
And just when you think you have this book all figured out as a love manual, it just throws you a total curveball. Apparently, the Ananga Ranga also includes a prescription for curing baldness. It just goes to show you what an amazing mix this text is, of practical advice and what we would probably call folk magic. So, after looking at all these classifications and the timetables and the really bizarre potions, what's the big picture here? What are we supposed to make of all this? Well, it's pretty telling that in India, the book is often known by another name, the Leela Shastra, which translates to the scripture of play.
The translators use this beautiful quote from the poet Hafiz to describe why this book has had such staying power in the East. For hundreds of years, it's been seen as a source of wisdom that is, quote, ever old but ever new. It's not some dusty old relic, it's a living part of a culture's conversation about love.
And that leaves me with one final thought for all of you. In our modern world, which is so focused on spontaneous romance, what can we possibly take away from a 500-year-old guide that treated love like a systematic art form, something that needed study, practice, and methodical attention? Maybe, just maybe, it's a powerful reminder that things like empathy, paying close attention to what your partner needs, and a spirit of joyful play, well, maybe those things are truly timeless.